Hope you guys are staying safe and doing well. Really appreciate you guys being here. And this is when it goes down south. We're going to talk about all the production war stories that you have either in the back of your brain or in your back pocket that you don't want to ever talk about again because 2020 was such a tough year. But we're here to you can see this as a therapy session or just as a hang out with some friends. And we're going to have some fun. So icebreaker, we're going to get started this way. This is actually a positive question. Kyle, how are you enjoying the off season?
Well, it just started for me. I've been going since September with Saints season, and then went right into the crossover with taking over Pelicans as well this year, which was really exciting. And I haven't gotten my nose swabbed in about 2 weeks now, so things are looking up in the world. So things are going all right in the off season.
I guess I can ask this question even though you just ended. Are you excited to get started again in the fall?
We're already started now, man. Once that schedule comes out, we're already planning. I know LJ will reiterate that, I'm sure, too. But yeah, once that schedule came out 2 weeks ago, we are already thinking about what's going on every week in the dome next year.
Right. All right, LJ, I'll ask you the same questions. Enjoying the offseason and ready to get rocking and rolling again.
Yeah, I would say kind of maybe similar to Kyle. They're really the league is doing a wonderful job of making sure we don't really have an off season.
Right.
So we have a football season and an event season, and you know it's really been great though. It's great to see California on the brink of reopening here soon, and yeah, it's been nice to have a little bit of downtime from football, but we jumped quickly into event season and planning mode.
Okay, Dustin, you already know the question. Enjoying the off season, and are you ready to get rolling?
Yeah, I think everyone on this call who works in sports knows off seasons don't really exist anymore because we fill our time with everything else. So yeah, we're fully in objective setting and strategic plans, and that's what I'll be doing right after this. So
okay, look at that.
Yeah, not a lot of downtime. The only thing we're not doing this month is I only have one shoot this week, and we have nothing for about 3 weeks. So not picking up a camera is kind of interesting. We're working on budgets for next year, and then and doing some final purchasing from budgets this year. So
right. Okay. So whenever there's no work, there's still work to be done. So a break from work to do some work. Okay. Laura. Okay. So we're going to go, I guess, chronologically somewhat. So LJ, you're first because the Cardinals, spoiler, the Cardinals hosted you guys for like the last couple of weeks of the season. That's why you're here to talk about it. But when you first heard the news about having to leave the county, having to leave the state, what were your first thoughts?
Yeah, so fun story about this. I was actually out and about. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was getting groceries when I got a text from my BFF, Alan, at the Vikings, who said, "Your team is moving, ? And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he sent me a link to a tweet that said that our county was banning outdoor sports. And so that's how I found out. Which was really interesting. And yeah, it kind of just snowballed from there. Then the internal dialogue started. I know our team, also found out kind of similarly through kind of, well, that's where we get all our news these days anyway, is Twitter. So that's that. So then conversations started to happen very quickly over the weekend of what the alternate plans would be. And then it just really took steam from there. But yeah, that's how I found out. Thanks for Alan for always keeping me honest and sending me information and, when I'm not looking at Twitter and getting groceries.
Right. And it wouldn't be 2021 or I guess 2020 if we weren't finding out news about your team or us on social media through somebody else.
Exactly.
So that's how it goes. Take me to the challenges of getting adjusted to Arizona. And we'll first go there and then we'll ask about the technological solution. So just working in a new space that you haven't in a while. Spoiler alert, you worked for the Cardinals, but we'll get into that more. But having to adjust to a space that you haven't worked in a while, and also just living arrangements and having to just go through life in a different state that you haven't been in a while.
Yeah, so the challenge was really like we just knew we needed to pick up and we needed to relocate and we needed to figure out how we would make State Farm Stadium feel like Levi Stadium. How can we make it look and feel that way on broadcast? We found out on Saturday through Twitter, and then literally, the plans to formalize to go to State Farm Stadium came in, I want to say maybe late Sunday night or Monday. And then we were the following Monday night football game. So we had to turn around really quickly. But, you know, that was, and then on the same part about that, you know, one of the challenges was just the responsibility of how we would get out there very safely, and make sure that not only we would be protected, but, you know, the Cardinals had a home game the Sunday prior to the Monday night game. So we wanted to make sure that we were following all these processes and protocols. So Aaron Kennedy, you know, and I drove separately, but we both drove 11 hours from San Jose to Phoenix to make, I mean, and a lot of that was a conversation that we had with Mike Connor and Tim Beach and the team of just saying, how do we make sure that everyone feels safe and we're traveling in the safest way possible? We also had to bring a bunch of gear with us too, out there. So that was just the most immediate, you know, challenge that we had of, you know, just trying to make Levi's Stadium make State Farm Stadium look and feel like Levi's.
Right. It's funny. I bring it back to that Monday Night Football game. I was watching it, saw the stadium was red. I was like, okay, Levi. I'm like, wait a minute. They're in Arizona. And that's when I emailed you. I was like, I totally forgot that you're in Arizona now. And it's absolutely crazy. So those solutions to those problems, what were some of the gear? What was the gear that you brought from the 49ers facility to kind of make it feel like at least you had a piece of home with you in Arizona?
Yeah. So a lot of that was, you know, we just needed to get our sounds over there. You know, audio standpoint, we needed to make sure we brought our signature sounds. So we brought a lot of our DJ gear with us. We had to also coordinate getting, you know, some different positions like our PA announcer. We wanted to travel in for that, from that sound standpoint, as well as the DJ gear and getting a DJ into the building. And then also, you know, on top of that, what's really great about Arizona and State Farm is they host a lot of big events, you know, and we know, luckily I do know what gear they have, and, you know, a lot of great, you know, folks over there. So, you know, along with Mike Connor, who actually hired me in, you know, over in Arizona, and we both opened that stadium, feels like forever, but it was 15 years ago that we opened up that stadium. And, you know, other folks who work over there too, it's, you know, great to be around, you know, them, but we knew they had Ross Expression. We have Ross Expression. We were able to find solutions through that, through Expression Dashboard. Show flow scripting was huge for us because we were able to share our scripts online with them. They were able to quickly go in and see what we had already and how we could translate it. And then of course, Daktronics, they're a Daktronics house as well. So it was very simple in terms of content creation and being very familiar with the solutions that State Farm Stadium has in place.
Okay. In terms of just, we mentioned it, but yes, you worked for the Cardinals. I guess take me through if there was ever a snafu and it was a random quick fix because you knew the lay of the land so well. How much did your experience play an important role in that? You know, you never thought you'd be in Arizona, period, when you were working in San Francisco, because you'd think you would be finding all your home games in Levi's. So how did the experience play a role?
Yeah, it was really great. You know, I was able to actually help our team with a lot of just building knowledge, knowing, you know, we had to get tarps. Our marketing team had to get all the tarps with our partners made for State Farm. And I was able to kind of talk through a lot of those different spaces, what the venue looks like, where access points are, you know, all of those types of things. So, you know, just knowing that, and then again, you know, to your point, I worked there for 8 seasons. So I had I know the crew, I know the building, the staff is just, you know, tremendous over there. I can't say enough great things about, you know, the crew over there, but, you know, I know the operations team, you know, at State Farm Stadium. It's great to get on calls with them just from an operations standpoint to talk through, you know, how things were going. But also, kind of spoiler alert, my sister works over there. She's a permalancer. She's been there for 10 years. So she's the other half of my brain. And, you know, it's really great when you have someone who knows you like that. Jade Roeder, who also works on Expression over there for the Cardinals as a permalancer, you know, she helps us and freelances and helping to program a lot of our Expression here as well. So 2 people who are very familiar with our show that we have in San Francisco, and being able to have kind of that direct connection. And again, somebody who can just kind of mind read and know what you're looking for and know what you need. it was just instrumental.
It's crazy how things work that way. Your sister is working in Arizona, and then it's just like, hey, let's go to Arizona and finish our season off. Awesome. Yeah. LJ, you can chill for a little bit. You have some time to kind of enjoy the rest of these gentlemen as they speak. Dustin, because you're in the Bay Area, figured we'd go to you next. Same question I asked LJ to begin with. When you learned you had to leave the county, what were your thoughts? Were you grocery shopping as well? What were you doing? What were you?
I don't even remember where I was, but I just remember it was all extremely quick because for hockey, our season wasn't announced until right around Christmas time.
Right.
And then we were told it almost happened simultaneously as the county was doing their restrictions and adding, the no contact sports. We were trying to figure out what our season was. So instead of LJ kind of being in a process, we were absolutely, everything was being learned at the same time for any of the hockey teams. And it was a very quick turnaround from, Christmas and New Year's to getting everybody activated. And, everyone in hockey had that issue. We just had the added bonus of moving. So it was a surprise. It was a bit of a surprise, but I think we were aware that our situation was going to be much different than everyone else's, including Canada's, right? They're going to have their own. We knew that there was a lot of different structures going on since our sport plays across borders. Yeah. So that played a part. I wasn't terribly surprised it was Arizona. It could have been Vegas, Arizona, any of those places that were kind of open. I had a feeling it would be there. Ironically enough, LJ and I have known each other for years because she got to go back to her old building and my team got to go back to my old building because I worked for the Coyotes as well. So that was bizarre. I reached out to Chadwick, who just joined the Coyotes and unfortunately had just got to the desert to learn that not only did he have one job to learn, now he had two teams to take care of and everything was different for him. So we got really fortunate though. How it ended up shaking out for us is the league thought ahead for us a bit and knew that they were putting us in a bit of a strange situation moving. So our first 12, 13 games were on the road. So it ended up that we didn't lose any home dates, which was good. But we were on on a long stretch at the beginning and just Arizona was the hub for that. So that was kind of how that went down. Far as who could go, we had a very small group. So we could have one producer, video editor, same person, one social media manager, and basically the entire team with their equipment staff, and that was it. So I never even got a chance to go to Arizona. I was here the whole time. So we did everything very remotely, including media day and things like that, as lots of people, including the Niners, did as well. So everything was through Zoom. So obviously we set up nice cameras to an actual record system, but we were doing all the talking and all the communicating through Zoom. And I thought overall, using our partners at Zoom and working with their technology, obviously we'd used it before, but never in these kind of capacities. We learned some really fun ways to do things. One of the first challenges we had was on media day, we needed to do something with one of our equipment managers or our equipment strength and conditioning coach. And he was supposed to break down some moves for our Kaiser initiative and basically a workout program. Well, Zoom is great, but you're pretty far from the camera once you back up to get the whole body in there. So That was a technical challenge where you got everything's bouncing off of walls. They're in a huge cavernous room at a hotel. So if you ever have that situation, earbuds are fantastic. Have them call in. So what we had our guy do is he called in on Zoom chat, but he also called in on his phone. And he put his phone off camera and he was talking through the earbuds. So we were able to get great audio from back. And we literally thought of that as he was standing in an empty room going, we can't hear you well. And we just had to think of challenges. So luckily he had earbuds and luckily they worked and it went pretty well. But far as technology wise, because we didn't have to have any games on the road and we were really just doing our social media stuff and really trying to get our media day done, we didn't have a lot of external, and we also didn't have a lot of space to travel on the team plane. Planes are much smaller in hockey than they are in the NFL because the body count is such a different size. So under the plane, there's not a whole lot of space. So we kept it pretty bare and did the best we could. But with social media being there and a producer, we, our social media team was running extra, and they worked really hard to get all the, get our fans connected to us. They hadn't seen us in a long time because we missed bubble hockey. So now they're seeing us, but we're completely away from them. So we had to make sure that we reminded them, that we were back in action, and that we hope to be at SAP Center soon.
Hypothetical question, because it didn't happen, but if the team was to stay in California, how much harder do you think the job would have to be? What were some of the restrictions that you would probably have to deal with?
To be honest, it would have completely shut us down. Because we're an indoor venue and the NHL had different protocols than the NFL and Santa Clara County, which LJ and I both had to deal with, which was extremely reducing the size of anybody around anybody, really, even players to players. I mean, they had to be masked up in the locker room the entire time. They wanted only certain amount of guys on the ice for the beginning of training camp and stuff, so we almost had to have 2 different sets of practices and stuff like that. So really, it would have been pretty much impossible to do anything outside of Zoom calls with them. Right. So on some way, when it was announced we were leaving, in a little way, I mean, it was at least a happy, okay, we can get some production done. Yeah. We knew that once we got there, we'd have different restrictions. Although when we left, the county did tell us that we were under their county restrictions, even if we were in another county, because that county was fairly open. And if we wanted to get back, they did not want us gallivanting at restaurants and bars and everything else, because even the hotel we were at, the pool was packed. I mean, it was wide open. So everyone so my employees were basically confined to their hotel room and practice space because everything else around them was open. So they had to really tuck away.
Okay. In terms of getting content and access to the players, usually if you're home, like they're going back to their house or they're going back to their living quarters. But when you're in Arizona, you're kind of somewhat in the same area. What was it like working with the players on an off day after practice? Was there a tiering system in place where only a certain amount of people could communicate with them? And how did that process work of grabbing, like, I guess, footage, if you even could?
Yeah, we didn't do a whole lot of it. We did do some, obviously interviews and stuff like that were fine. Media availability after games or practices was fine. All basically done through DSLR to Zoom, basically. So we had at least some depth of field and we lit it and everything. But it was really restrictive. It was basically a PR member would text them in their hotel room, come on down. The room is empty. They would walk in from one side of the room. Our crew was way on the other side, basically. They sat down and then we did the thing. But the other good thing is if we did need to communicate with the players, we were in their bubble. So even when they got back to SAP Center, I was in the 2A group. So I was tested every day. I agree with Kyle's earlier thoughts. It is nice not to be tested anymore because that was a long adventure. But it was also nice once you got into the office and you knew everyone was tested, and in a 24-hour testing period, you felt, even though you're all masked up and everything, you felt at least safe enough to work with your employees, and we knew, kind of, how that was going. So once off the top, it was a little spaced out for our time with the players. Also, it's extremely busy time for them too, right? They're practicing a lot. They're trying to make the squad. And at the same time, they're driving all over the one-on-one loop to get to the ice den and all this stuff, and all that's new to them. So, it was, for them, I think it was a bit of a fish out of water experience. I think it gelled the team together. It definitely gelled all of us who work in production. I mean, all of us probably on this call worked with our buildings in a different way than we had ever done before, right? And have an appreciation for each other in a different light. So that was kind of a good thing too.
Okay, awesome. Kyle, you're on the hot seat. I'll jokingly ask this question now because I learned that both LJ and Dustin went back home to work at an old job. Did you, for somehow, work at an old job even though you didn't leave New Orleans?
No, can't say I did.
Rats.
No, I'm the minority there. I stayed in New Orleans and didn't go anywhere for a long time. Finally getting out of town this weekend for the first time since September, or really probably well before then. But yeah, it's finally getting out of town this weekend. Heading to Nashville, so it'll be fun. All
right, Smashville. That sounds like some fun. What didn't sound like fun were unfortunately your holidays, because you were very busy. Merry Christmas, Kyle. You're in the thick of a postseason for the Saints. Pelicans start soon. How did you kind of take me through the schedule of games that you had to kind of endure?
So spoiler alert for everybody, Kristian did give me this question before, so I was able to do my research, make sure I had everything aligned on this. So this is what it was. December 20th, Sunday, Saints home game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Friday, Christmas Day, home football game, Friday, the 25th. Then we had his Pelicans game on Sunday. Sugar Bowl, as some people worked, that following Friday. Saturday was the Pelicans regular season home opener. Then we played Monday, Wednesday, Friday of that week. End of that week was Saints playoff game on Sunday against the Bears. And then we had a home playoff game against the Bucks. The following week, 4 Saints home games in 5 weeks, 5 Pelicans home games in 2 weeks, mixed with rehearsals, onboarding to employees, testing protocols, balancing all that. And then also my wife wanted to buy a house at that time. And we got it. We got the house, but I wasn't, unfortunately, as big of a part of that as I probably should have been. But yes.
Hold on, I'm gonna go run through this story. You're gonna keep saying all this stuff. The list has kept going on. Exactly, game presentation, the gift that keeps on giving. So you were busy, but we spoke back. You might have just ended the Saints season, the postseason back in January when we did our on the hardwood or on the gridiron. We spoke twice. Kind of talk to me how you prepared for the convergence of both teams, and thankfully we'll get into it. The control room's in one centralized spot, so I'm sure that helped. But what were the issues having to, rehearsals for one team, getting a plan together for another? How did you kind of figure it out?
Frankly, the biggest issue, as you can imagine, was just time.
Right.
We did luck out. The Saints were on a 3-game road trip leading up to that December 20th game. So I was able to literally focus all on Pelicans for 3 weeks, pretty strong there. And I was able to say to my associate at the time, I was like, hey, I need you to prep for Saints for that upcoming game and on the 20th. And so we were able to really focus and dive deep into Pelicans. I had a lot I had to learn, working with our sponsorship team, with operations, about the protocols at the building, PA announcers, to new music operator we brought in, to working with our special effects, all that crazy stuff in a very, very, very tight condensed window. Was just nuts. I just had to make sure I stayed organized, paid attention to detail, but worked efficiently enough without sacrificing that detail and that efficiency there,
Okay. And obviously you can't be in multiple places at once worrying about the same team. So were there key people on either of the squads, key colleagues that kind of helped you prepare for either team or run a rehearsal while you were busy with something else?
Well, luckily, like you said, with us having a control room that the control room powers the Superdome and the arena, we would never have the crossover of events. We're very, very fortunate with that. But there was our group, like I said, our associate Alex did a tremendous job getting things ready for Saints and geared up. But our production group as a whole did a tremendous job balancing both teams as well. I was pushing them on the Saints side, hey, we got to create more content, while also saying, hey, we got to create all of our new content for Pelicans as well. So it was production to our entire game experience group, which we had just literally, like I said, just hired 2 new people that trying to onboard them and teach them while all being in our red zone with the NBA. So I was at the scores table on the court side, and I couldn't get to them during game days. They couldn't see me on game days. It was crazy balancing those protocols. But then our operations group are very much unsung heroes of what we do because of the long hours and the craziness they have to deal with from both of the leagues that we work with. And just like the building in general, ASM Global, the people who run the building with us, we're very good about things with us.
Okay, awesome.
Right. We were also really fortunate though to have Saints already going into Pelicans, because we knew what to expect from a fan standpoint primarily, because like we knew it's such a weird experience for the fans the first times they're in there, but because we were able to kind of prep with that a little bit through our 10 games with Saints, we kind of were able to get a different mentality with things going into Pelican season.
Right, and if you can handle the Superdome and the production elements with the crowd sound and all that in that huge stadium, that dome, you can handle what was to come in the Smoothie King Center, I'm sure, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. Kyle, thank you, sir. We're going to go back to Dustin because the team eventually ended up coming back to the Bay Area. But tell me what changed. Tell me what changed when you were able to, well, you were sleeping in your bed and eating home cooked food the whole entire time. But when those people that came back from the desert, I guess they were I'm sure they were happy to get back home. But in terms of production and workflows, what were the major differences from the two sides?
Just more help for those people. They were absolutely burned out when they got home. They probably were 3 times as excited as the players and team to get home. I mean, they had been running and gunning with like 13 days of road trips. They were all over the place and still living under these, tight parameters. So they're basically confined to their hotel room. So just getting a chance to get home, go outside, get some, non-DoorDash delivery food. That was pretty much what they lived on. So, for them, that was the big part, but also just being able to get help. They were having to do so much. My producer, Brendan, was on the road and, he's having to light everything, audio, EQ, everything, edit everything because it's pretty hard round tripping stuff. We tried our best. He would send files at night and stuff like that if it was the next day. But, and we were doing scrums via Zoom, which was nice because those were easily recorded on our end in San Jose, and we were able to take care of those for him. But, as anybody knows who travels with a team, you're not the first person thought of, right? So you're working really hard just trying to keep up with everybody else and make sure you deliver. And I'm sure it was extra stress in the back of their mind, just knowing that we needed to connect with our fans. They needed to try to do as much in a day as they possibly could, and pretty much, one man banding it or social and video work together. But, it's pretty different skill sets. So I would say getting back to the building, obviously getting an opportunity to, have some help, but really get back to a little bit more of what we knew, because once we did get back, protocols had relaxed. It had been over a month. So protocols had relaxed a bit, and even part-timers and things like that were able to be swabbed day of before they came in. So there was a lot more that we were capable of doing. And, and the players also were going home and seeing their families and resting as well in their own bed, like you said. And that goes a long way. After about 10 or 12 days of, you pulling out of their hotel room to ask them questions, and they're kind of burned out as well. You're obviously going to get better content once you get back and everyone feels a little bit more comfortable.
Right. Okay. Well, about 30 minutes of retelling horror stories. So I appreciate you guys sharing. We have about 15 minutes left. So more things that happened in the recent future. And this is kind of the bonus, the DLC part of the panel, because we're going to talk about other things that were happening. LJ, we'll start with you. The NFL draft was recently. Today, it's May. So what was that? Last month? I'm losing track of time.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate the nod of approval. So how did the Niners cover the NFL draft? I saw some things on Instagram about how you worked with Van Wagner for some of the equipment and the backdrops, but I'll leave that for you to tell.
Yeah, so for day one, obviously pretty exciting for us to move up to the 3rd overall pick to make that in advance. So that really helped us from a programming standpoint to run a show together. We did a pre-draft show that was 35 minutes of programming with a mix of live and pre-recorded. We used our studio. We have a beautiful studio that's literally steps away from my door. That we were able to use and kind of get the crew back into the building for, and that was great. We hadn't touched a lot of that gear since we came back. We left, for the last month, on the road in AZ. So we hadn't touched a lot of that. I mean, we have been touching that gear, but really putting it through its paces. So we learned a lot of just, putting the gear through the paces again and finding little things like that. But and then day 3 was the draft pick announcements were made from our training facility. So Van Wagner sent us out some gear to do all of that, for them to be able to produce some of that stuff remotely. But it was just a great opportunity for us. We were able to spread a little love around to our crew, give some people on our team an opportunity to be in the producer seat and produce that pre-draft show. I was able to get out of it and be our clips playback, which was awesome, and see some other folks on our team like Justin Drum, Billy Barnes, AJ Murray, just in different positions in the control room to learn a little bit. And I think that's such a value during this time to try to, give people opportunities to shine.
Right. Kyle, did you guys do anything on the Saints side? I know this isn't on the script, but we're gonna fly off the cuff.
Throw me off here. Throw me off. No, we did a little something. Honestly, I wasn't too involved with that. It was more of our digital team that did some content, but I think it was more so a post-draft analysis that we had done, if I remember correctly.
Okay, cool. Dustin, we'll go to you next because I was going to ask these individuals about Media Day. Do you have plans for Media Day so far, or are you kind of waiting a couple of weeks?
Yeah, we don't have any plans yet because with the season not ending, the
Right.
NHL is not going to announce the start of next season until this gets done. So yeah, we're totally anticipating that we'll be close to back to normal by the time the players arrive. That's generally mid-September. So hopefully by then things are fairly back to normal in our county. It seems to be going that way, and if that's the case, then we'll be back on the ice with them like we always have been, and kind of do the same kind of things. But if we still have to do some Zooms and things like that, if there is some hybriding, I still think it'll be drastically improved from our abilities from last year for sure.
Okay, we're gonna go backwards. Kyle, what will Media Day look like for you?
We're still working on it. We're probably going to be pushing ours to closer to training camp time, and that way we hope that there's more players potentially there and everything. Obviously, you always have that factor of guys maybe not showing up to mini camp or OTAs type stuff. But we're going to be looking at it basically the late July probably, and we're talking about figuring out how many different stations we can get, how many people we can get access based on what the NFL protocol is going to be there. Obviously, we unfortunately, unlike LJ, we do not have a studio currently. So we've talked about figuring out other solutions. Also, in case you didn't realize, in the end of July in New Orleans, it's not nice outside. You don't want to spend time outside.
Yeah.
So if we do anything like a tent or any kind of space, we need to bring in air conditioning units, and we need to figure all that out. Our facility is also right by a train track, so you have that to worry about an audio standpoint and such. So I wish I had more concrete answers for you, but it is definitely a work in progress that we're working on. But it's important to us that we gather new content, because last year we just had literally a green screen station and a photo station, and that really only happened because there was a push from the networks. And if we don't have new content from the guys in 2 years, it's not going to look great. So with the effort of trying to get back to normalcy, we're trying to present the content that our fans are used to seeing on game day as best as possible.
Okay, so Summer in the Swamp or Sound of a Train? Something
we get them both, don't worry.
Nice. So Sound of the Train, yeah, Summer in the Train. There you go. LJ, what about you over in San Francisco?
Yeah, so my crew loves me right now because we are actually setting up for what I've rebranded as Media Week. It's not one day, so it's Media Week next week for us. And so we are in the thick of it in terms of planning out all of our stations, planning out our set, planning out green screen, all of those types of things, working with network. Our group is, we know the sensitivities of training camp and how important that is to our head coach. And so we know we have to pounce when we can, and that's next week for us. So, we are moving full steam ahead on that. And yeah, it's different. It's going to look very different, Kristian, because I won't be inside the computer this year.
I was going to say, you're not on Zoom anymore, underneath the camera. I remember that. Yeah.
So the hope is I won't be inside the computer. I can actually be, there with the players. So yeah, we are working with our stadium operations team, who helps us out tremendously. Our PR, communications team, football communications team helps out. It's a heavy lift by every single person, from marketing to PR to ops, of just getting this ready. And we have to use a completely different footprint than we've used in the past, because that footprint is a classroom for the players. So we are inside the footprint of Levi Stadium. We don't have to rent a tent or go outside in swampy weather. But yeah, definitely looking forward to not being in the computer this year.
No trains either?
No trains.
Okay, good to hear. Okay, so you're welcome. I'm going to knock on wood, because we hope that this situation never happens again, where the two of you have to be in another state. And Kyle, I mean, I don't know. Will this ever happen again in a normal year where we have to worry about two teams?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's hope it's not as bad then. Okay. Dustin, we'll start with you. Say for some reason that someone had to deal with this in the future, what advice would you give them?
Communicate well with your team.
Okay.
Be patient with each other because everyone's learning. That was, everyone was learning how to do a new job, to the point that Kyle and LJ said earlier too, is it was an excellent opportunity for people to take on new skills.
Right.
Some of those probably weren't things you wanted to list on your resume, but it was definitely helpful to band together as a team. That's really it. I think the compassion of each other, especially because this was something that is a health concern. I think that was a really instrumental part as how we work together, is making sure that we were respecting each other, the learning curve, but also respecting each other's comfortability, because I think at first it was a little awkward to be around people again, and a lot of us work in very small spaces. So, we had great outcomes of the way we worked together. But, I think that was the biggest thing that really, I think, got us across the finish line, was compassion, caring for each other, looking out for each other, and being able to take on new tasks.
Okay. LJ, what about you?
Yeah, and going back to a place that you left, I would say it's all about relationships. You definitely. I'd been back there. When I worked for Van Wagner, I was back there for Super Bowl 49 in 2014. But it's all about relationships. It's all about the folks. Everyone there really wanted to see us succeed, which was really great to have that feeling and have that openness of communication. And then, as Dustin mentioned, just, the communication and compassion amongst our team, the folks who in our department who didn't get to come with us. I think, there was definitely some disappointment there, but because only Aaron and I could travel in from a headcount perspective. But, advice I would give to people is, lean on your team, but also lean on others in this industry. It's great to have folks to be able to bounce things off of and just be able to pick up the phone and call. And like I said, I think relationships are so incredibly important, because I never in a million years thought that, I'd be back in that building, producing a game, a 49ers game, nonetheless, inside of that building. And really to have the opportunity to do that and see everyone really want to see you succeed, I think was really awesome.
Okay. Kyle, we now realize that your situation is probably more likely to happen than a global pandemic. And it should be that way. I hope another pandemic doesn't happen again. But what would the advice be from your end?
I think both of them said great things about that, and I echo both of their thoughts, especially with LJ with talking about the relationships and leaning on other counterparts across the leagues. That's something that we did heavily this year. We didn't always receive guidance in the most timely manner, so we would bounce things off of each other, whether it was Alan or LJ or Kristen Pugh or Eric Long, all these people that we would just text each other, or we would have our idea calls with each other. But also for me, I think it's just about making sure everybody's adaptable and willing to pivot at a moment's notice, because with this pandemic, as we saw, things change and things change quickly. Guidance from the leagues might change, and you got to be willing to change and kind of suck it up and do it, right? And it's kind of part of the gig with it. And but I think, being adaptable has been a huge thing for everybody, and willing to take on new responsibilities and do it and enjoy what you're doing still, I think was a big part of it.
All right. Okay. One more question, and we're going to start with Dustin. But if the situation presented itself again, I don't know how, but it may. I don't know. Would you do it again if you could? And if you did do it again, what would you do differently?
I think I can only answer the second part. I don't think there was any choice on how we would do it. And if it happened again, absolutely want to entertain our fans. I want to, get our players' faces out there as much as humanly possible. I'd really like to support, the San Jose Sharks any way we can. So we would definitely do it again. To do it differently would be really challenging from the point we were at. We were just absolutely so handcuffed. If there was any way to get that headcount to expand, it would have just changed our world, but we were so absolutely against the wall. I'm not sure. just experiencing and having gone through it, thinking of some of the quirks, talking to people before you jump on a Zoom call with them and start pushing record because their background is atrocious or their camera angle is way up here. And so there's those little technical aspects, but there wasn't much outside of the small stuff that we really could have controlled in our situation.
Okay, Kyle, I'm kind of messing up with the order, but what about you?
Would I do it again? Yeah.
You kind of have to, right?
Yeah. You don't really have a choice. But I mean, I just missed our fans so much, especially with Saints and the fans being such a crucial part of our games and making a difference in the outcome we feel with games of the Dome. But what's interesting about this is that when you have constraints like we had this year, it forces you to be creative in a whole nother way you never thought of doing. Or being with that. And so, especially with Pelicans, with not having court access and different things like that we had to think differently. How can we do half times differently to still engage our fans? Or even with Saints, we weren't just going to throw up red zone highlights at halftime. We had to think about ways to creatively present content that was engaging for the fans. Yeah, I just hope we never have to do it again, man.
I know, buddy. I know. Trust me. LJ, what about you? You take us home.
Yeah, so I think, if the situation presented itself, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there really was any choices that I can think of that we would have done differently in that situation. I think, we were really sensitive to the fact that we were guests in somebody else's house. And we kept that top of mind. We had a game, they were doing pre and post game shows, production out of the control room, and we had to overlap on our last home game. And so we had to get really creative with solutions, came up with a dashboard. So I was hitting the buttons, and if anybody else has had to produce and hit the button at the same time, you're like, oh, that show called. No, that's for me. Like, I need to hit the button. Right. I think the other thing too, that I would just reiterate, and I would be remiss if I didn't say it, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think just driving home the point of what we all went through last year, how abnormal that was, and just how important the mental health of not only ourselves, but of our crew and of the Arizona team as well. And just being completely appreciative of all of their efforts. I don't think there was a day I went into that control room and didn't say how grateful and thankful I was that they were helping us out. Again, because we knew we were guests in their house, and they didn't anticipate having two more games added to their calendar to deal with. So I think I'm incredibly grateful for all of the experiences, wanted or not, in my path, because it always leads to opportunities to take those learnings and apply them. Having worked in Arizona was a great way to take that knowledge and bring it into that situation. Working for Van Wagner and being thrown into different buildings all the time just aided in all of that. So I would 100% do it all over again. I hope COVID doesn't exist beyond 2021, but if something presented itself, absolutely 100% would do it all over again.
Right. Make sure you say your thank yous, and you got to take care of yourself, because if you're not up to par and the show's not up to par, and just take care of yourself. It goes a long way for both of those. But all right, it's 3:50. We actually have 20 seconds. You want to just talk for another 15 seconds to make sure it's 45? I'm kidding. LJ, Dustin, Kyle, I see you shaking your head, Kyle. Thank you to all of you three. Enjoy the time that you have. You guys deserve a little bit of break, but then it's back on the gas pedal in another season, because sports don't stop. And until then, thank you again, and I hope to see you guys in person soon.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
Thanks.
Yeah,
man.
would
Thanks
love
for having
that.
us.
Thanks, Kristian.